like how the only sound is just you putting your gloves on.
Sorry. Good?
Yep.
First time in history of Adams Live, we're a little early. But welcome everybody to Adams Polish's Wednesday Live. I've actually been talking about this topic for like the last few weeks of like an iron remover and clay bar combo kind of thing. I'm going to talk about like the process on how to do it. And actually, like as I got to work and then I ran over to a company called Running for Tacos, which is just right across the highway from us. I was cleaning an engine of one of the owners over there because last night they posted a picture of, oh my gosh, we switched out our like they had like a radiator leak, so they like switched out the radiator in a 2007 Tundra, and the engine was destroyed. Like it was so dirty. So I like messaged him on Instagram. Not like this. You don't message like this on Instagram. So I messaged him.
You use Instagram on your desktop
Yeah,
like a
exactly.
crazy person?
Yeah, exactly. Not a laptop. No. But anyways, I'm like, dude, please let me clean that engine. And he responds. He says, tomorrow with a question mark. I said 10:30 question mark. He says, see you then. So I went over there and cleaned it really quick and took a couple pictures, but it was more just to like, I couldn't stand it. And so as I came back, I walked right by this truck and like you can see the whole back of this is just caked with sediment, essentially you could call it. But that's just like a reality of winter driving. And so I was like, oh, this might actually be perfect for the iron remover video that I've been talking about doing for a while now. And you can see I rinsed this little section off right here. And I don't know if Chris can capture it, but like when you look on here, there's a bunch of orange and black specks on here. And that is like the iron fallout that's on this. But because it's a winter driver, like it's just getting caked with iron fallout, but also a ton of bonding contamination. And actually, cars that are consistently driven in harsh weather conditions, especially snow, get a ton of iron fallout. And so this is something like if you live like Midwest, you know, areas where it snows a lot, like Colorado, I mean, there's still snow on the ground, even though it's like almost 50 degrees today. But you really need to do iron contamination like almost every 3 months, like every decontamination, yeah. Because you get so much of it. And mainly like what it is there's metal on the road from so many different factors, from, you know, the brakes on semis to, you know, the brakes from cars. There's rail dust. There's all kinds of stuff on the ground that then the snow mixes with it, and then you drive in it and it kicks up and it goes onto your car. But what I was explaining to somebody a couple days ago is almost like the concept behind like iron fallout is what a lot of people call it, iron contamination. Like if I just go ahead and I'm going to clean this off first, and if I just go straight into iron removing, like it will turn quite a bit purple, because that's like the thioglycolate inside our iron remover. When it reacts with metal, it breaks down, and that natural reaction between the thioglycolate melting the metal, it turns purple. And the one thing about it is, like, it's one thing to just spray iron remover on, but it's a whole nother thing to need to get normal bonded contamination off, like paint overspray, tree sap, road tar, all kinds of stuff that's sitting on top. So if you think about it, this is the best way I can do it. I've talked about this before, but like if this is the flat surface of your paint, like bonded contamination is stuff that sticks to the surface of it, like this, okay? So it's like little pieces of paint overspray and tree sap and all that stuff. And you also get some iron contamination that's sitting on top as well, or it kind of bonds to the surface. But you also get iron contamination that actually is like shrapnel, and it embeds into the actual paint. So it's like beneath the surface of the top layer of the paint. So if you spray iron remover on and you're getting the stuff that's stuck to the top, not embedded into the actual underneath the surface of the paint, like it does fine, but you can remove that with clay bar, right? So like the thing about iron remover is like after you take off all the surface bond and contamination, like paint overspray and the iron that's sitting on top, you still have, kind of shear off the top surface of the iron that's embedded into the paint underneath the surface. But how do you get that point, right? So you'll notice like there's a ton of orange specks and things on here. After I clay it, you'll see there'll be less orange specks, but they're still there. But I already ran the clay bar over it. So it doesn't mean that it's on the surface, it's like inside the paint. That's when you do iron remover for a second time, and it starts penetrating the iron fallout that's embedded into the paint and starts breaking that down, and then you rinse it away and it comes out of your paint, and instead of having orange specks and all this stuff on your car, boom, you have your paint back. Okay, so the iron contamination thing I think is a misunderstood concept. I think people just rinse their car off, spray iron remover, and they're like, oh, look, it turned purple, it worked. And I'm like, yeah, it did, like on all the surface stuff, but you never actually did what iron remover was intended for.
So you really need to do both.
You need to do both. And that's so you need to do both claying and you need to do iron removing. But what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you a process of how you combine both together, okay? And people are going to tell me that I'm absolutely crazy, and I welcome it. Please do.
But we already know you're crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I work here.
Chester says this includes graphene and advanced coating. I think he's asking if you can do this process on a coated vehicle.
Oh, yeah, Chester, yes. This does include on a ceramic coated vehicle. 100%, yeah. And
it won't remove the coating.
It won't remove the coating. There's not a single chemical that we have that will deteriorate a coating. Only abrasion. So like, see all this dirt and grime on here? The more that is on here, when I run my wash pad over, the more I'm reducing layers of ceramic coating. And next week, I actually just did this on Monday with one of our customer service people. I went to the whiteboard and I explained ceramic coating to him, and he was like, whoa, what the heck? And so next week on Wednesday, we are going to do the whiteboard discussion about ceramic coating. So like, if you have any questions about ceramic coating, come to next week's live and be prepared, because I'm going to go over everything and the concept of ceramic coating, the BS behind marketing of ceramic coating, the BS behind why people charge you $3,000 to have your car ceramic coated. I'm going to go through all of it, break it down as much as I can with my knowledge that I have about it. And that's knowledge from our chemists, that's knowledge from Adam, that's knowledge from other professional detailers, that's knowledge from my own experience. So I'm going to do my best just to kind of, and I want it to be like an open discussion. I'm not like preaching. I just want you guys, my understanding of how I think about it, I want you to understand it too. So first things first, the one thing with a car that's this dirty, I wanted to grab strip wash, but I couldn't find any in our detail bay, which means I need to grab more, but I will use the lubrication element of car shampoo. So I already put car shampoo in the bucket and on the wash pad. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take the top portion of the foam cannon, and I'm just going to put this directly on here, like so. And then I'm going to take this top dial and turn it all the way to the left, and then the fan is about right. So, just move some of this stuff for a second.
Is it possible to like try and keep a section that you clean the dirt off of, but don't iron remove one section so you can have?
Yeah, you want me to essentially like do one half of the car
You can do one half.
and leave the dirt on this side?
No, I was saying take all of the dirt off, but then have a before and after of the iron removal decontamination.
Yeah, of course.
So we can see like orange specks versus
Yep.
less.
So when there's this much dirt on here, what I actually want to do is spray soap on there first, so I can try to encapsulate as much of it as possible, and then I'll rinse it off. Okay, when it's this dirty, foaming it down first is pretty important, because it creates lubrication not only to help lift that dirt away, but also to let the dirt glide off as you rinse it off. Does that make sense?
When you said foam first, You mean foam, then rinse, then foam again?
Yes,
then wash?
exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Foam, rinse, foam, then mitt. So I'll take this. So you can see it's just water. I'll do it like this. And then as I start turning this up, then it turns to foam. So just foam it on like that. Set this aside for just a moment. And you'll notice, like, I mean, this isn't even like a strip wash type of soap, but you can see the dirt is starting to fall off. Part of it too, we actually talked about this on the last live video last week. We were doing hoseless wash, which is like a form of rinseless wash. And the thickness of the foam and the weight of it, gravity pulls it down and it pulls a lot of the dirt with it. So like you can see all of the dirt that's mixed into the foam like coming down off of the rear tailgate onto the bumper and then going down onto the ground. So just like right off the bat, even though car shampoo doesn't have a special cleaning formula or anything like that, like the power of the foam and being able to lift away from the car and then pull dirt away, you know, like, I mean, you saw how dirty it was here. There's a little window right here where you can see like how much of the dirt has been pulled away from the car. So on cars that are extremely dirty, I tend to do this first. It does require an extra step, which for me, I'm okay with because in the long run, it reduces, you know, the amount of work that you end up having to do anyways.
And the amount of scratching.
Exactly. Less dirt on the car, less scratching, you know? So now, I mean, I would probably wait a little bit longer, but now I'm going to take and I'll rinse all of this off. So. Okay, so a lot better. And actually, like, it exposed so much iron contamination on here. I mean, I don't know if Chris can be able to see it in the camera, but it is like, I mean, this is probably more of a work truck, so they're beating the hell out of this truck. The heck, sorry. And it just, you can see all the iron contamination that's on here. And if I,
Point to some.
yeah, so like all right in here.
Oh yeah.
And it oftentimes gets like pretty concentrated around the badges and like into these little pockets that like just catch it, like all up in here too. But I'm curious because if you touch I have these gloves on. I mean, I can feel it and hear it. Touch your hand on there and tell me if you can feel if it's like rough.
Yeah, it feels like sandy.
Sandpaper on the surface.
Gritty, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not going to foam it again because I'm only doing the rear area here, but I am going to.
Wendy says, so it sounds like it's worth it to do this on a dark colored car, even though you can't always see the iron.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think the more you can't see the purple and like it working, but you probably could if it runs off of the car. But like all of this added iron contamination in your paint is only going to expedite the clear coat failure that you see on a lot of cars. So like doing this is important. It doesn't matter the color. You know, I tend to say, I think I'm going against what I've said before, which is fine. But I think like common sense is like the more contaminations on there, the worse it is for your paint. So like I've always kind of said like, if it's a dark color car, forget it. You can't see it, doesn't matter. But I think like obviously like the more stuff that gets embedded into your paint, the worse. And so I do recommend doing this I now recommend doing an iron decon mixed with a clay on all types of color cars. And I would say too, like, there's a reason why I'm working on the back of this car, because the back gets the most iron contamination out of any spot, all the rear areas, because like the dirt and everything kind of like comes, your wheels push it out this way, and then there's like there's air drag that's coming from on top and from underneath, and it just comes back and it hits your car. So the rear of your car, not only does it get the most dirty, but it also gets the most like contamination, especially like iron contamination. Oh shoot, sorry, we're not doing anti-fog today. We're gonna do this iron remover stuff and clay, but I was planning on doing the ceramic coating discussion next week, but if you want, I can save the ceramic coating whiteboard discussion for the week after, and next week we'll do the anti-fog. I forgot that was something that someone like requested specifically, so I apologize. But I will, you know what I'll do is I'll do that next week, and then we'll push the ceramic coating to the week after.
Mark says, hey Joe, doesn't using iron remover instead of detail spray as a clay lubricant increase the risk of damaging paint? If iron remover dries, which is a realistic possibility, we know it looks bad.
Mark, you're about to see. Now, I'll just say this, like, Mark essentially said, like, using iron remover as like a clay lube, does that like run the risk of damaging the car because you don't want it to dry on the surface? You definitely don't want it to dry on the surface, but I think for how fast I go through this process, you're gonna watch, you don't run the risk of it drying. I think I would say that you would if, if it was 85 degrees today in direct sunlight, then I definitely wouldn't do this process in direct sunlight in an 85-degree day. But today's what, Chris? 45?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Before we came out, it was 45.
45. But if I was going to do this on an 85-degree day, I would make sure that whatever area I'm working on is pointed away from the sun, not directly pointed at the sun. And I would just work a little bit faster is all I would do. Chris, can you help me?
At a time.
Can you help me remove the By the way, this is the visco clay. Can you help me remove this plastic?
Oh yeah.
Remove the plastic from your visco clay on both sides so you don't scratch your car.
Is it on there?
Mm-hmm.
Can't even feel the edge of it.
Don't eat your clay.
I'm not showing that.
You can show it. Chris, we're on a live video. This is as real as it gets for everybody. I do not care.
Not worried about being just clay in your mouth. It's gotta taste terrible.
It tastes so good.
Viewer, do not eat the clay.
It tastes what I imagine Michelin tastes like. Rubber. Okay. Okay, so we got our visco clay ready. Now,
to the people at home, take the plastic off before you put your gloves on.
there's been people that have accidentally left the plastic on their clay, their visco clay, and like went to do it, and they're like, it's not doing anything. And by the way, it scratched my car so bad, and it's like, yeah, well, it will. Plastic will do that.
Really quickly.
Okay, so I have this ready. Okay, I'm just gonna set this right here for now. Now, when I do iron remover, I think a lot of people rinse their car off and then they spray iron remover on. What I want is like the full concentration of iron remover going onto my paint. So Chris requested that I do one side. And so what I like to do is I'll just so by the way, in this process, okay, I have gone ahead and I've washed the whole car, okay? Imagine that there is soap on the whole car right now because I went and did the mint and I washed the whole thing. I don't go and rinse the whole rest of my car off unless I have a deionizer that's reading in like the teens or lower. So if it's like 15 parts per million ppm, or what's the other, TDS, like total dissolved solids, but ppm is like kind of what your blue reader comes with your deionizer. If it's like 15,
It's a TDS meter that's
it's a TDS meter that measures the
total
parts
dissolved
per
solids
millions. Yeah.
in parts per million.
Yeah. If it's 15 or below, like you could rinse your whole car and you're fine because you're not going to get water spots. But if you're using hard water, rinse off a section at a time.
15 or 50?
1.5. 15. Like you have your driver's permit. Rinse off a section at a time and like work your way around the car to avoid getting water spots. Okay, so we have like a big dog deionizer system. It has 3 pros connected to one, so it's still reading pretty low. I just checked it yesterday, but so I take a towel. I don't even care if like I'm not drying the whole car. I'm just doing little sections. So even if I leave it a little damp, I'm okay with it. But essentially, I just take this and run the towel over.
Real quick for people that just joined, does the clay bar remove or damage graphene ceramic coating?
Does the clay bar remove or damage a graphene ceramic coating? Absolutely not. I think because clay bars can be, I'd say like visco clay and the medium grade clay. They're both kind of medium grade clays. They can, reduce it a little bit, barely. But really, to get a ceramic coating off of a car, you need to compound it with like 4 or 5 passes to like really get through it. It's extremely durable. So no, clay bar, and actually I highly recommend doing like a maintenance clay. That's like one of the main things you need to do for maintenance on a ceramic coated vehicle is to clay it every few months, because your ceramic coating does not reject paint overspray and road tar and iron fallout and all this other stuff. It rejects water. So you have your ceramic coating, then you get a bunch of bonding contamination on top that's not hydrophobic, and now your ceramic coating looks like it's quote unquote failing. It just means that there's something on top. So I prefer the clay mitt because it's so easy. You do the clay mitt roughly every, I don't know, it just depends on how much you drive your car, but like every 2 months, every 3 months as a maintenance clay job, and it will keep your ceramic coating. Like you want your ceramic coating exposed to the elements, not ceramic coating, paint overspray, tree sap, and all this other stuff, and then the elements, right? So
it's not going to bead if there's something
yeah,
on top of
it gives water, a non-hydrophobic surface, it gives water something to grab onto, right? So after I dry this off, then we take our iron remover. Now, normally what I would do is I would go ahead and I would use detail spray, I would clay this, and then I would move on. But in this case, I want to get that. There's so much iron contamination on this car, I want to start working on that. So take the iron.
This side?
This side, yeah.
Okay.
So it's like before and then after. So I'll take the iron remover, and I want it to cover the whole surface, but I don't want it like I sprayed it too much right there. I just want it enough that it sticks and it starts engaging. Like so, okay? So what I want to do is let that sit for a minute and let the iron remover start to kind of do its thing, okay? And what you're going to end up noticing is as it continues to work, the purple, like when the wheel cleaner turns purple with the brake dust, it's going to start doing that all over the car. And not all over the car, but everywhere where I sprayed it.
Can you reiterate why it turns purple and what that ingredient
Why
is?
does it turn purple? Well,
Chemical reaction.
because it's our chemist's favorite color. No, the reason why is because iron remover has the same raw material in it that our wheel cleaner has in it, and that raw material is called thioglycolate. You can look it up. You can search it on Google if you want. I think it's thioglycolate, thioglycolate. And thioglycolate is something that once the molecules touch the metal molecules or particles, it starts to break it down. It's called complexing, I think is the way Chris described it. It complexes together, meaning like the thioglycolate starts breaking down the metal particles. And that natural reaction that happens that you see is the purple color happening. Okay, so you can see that. Can you see that, Chris?
Oh, definitely.
You can see that. Okay.
It's also helpful. YouTube, you can now zoom in on the live image.
Yeah, that's cool. So
Used to
like,
not have that, the most basic thing ever.
yeah, in some areas it's starting to like, it's not dry completely, but it's like starting to dry out a little bit. So what I'm gonna do now, a lot of this color that you see is iron that's sticking to the surface, not actually embedded into the paint like we talked about earlier. Like it's not below the painted surface, it's sitting on top. So instead of just rinsing this off and continuing to do my thing, what I personally like to do is I will spray this again, a nice thin layer, like so, to like re-wet it. And I'll set the iron remover aside. I'll take my Visco clay bar and I will start claying this surface. Because now as I do what I just did, which is hitting it with the clay, is not only am I removing the surface level iron contamination, I'm removing paint overspray, tree sap, road tar, any type of bonding contamination, which bonding contamination is defined as anything on your car, stuck to your car that you can't remove from just washing it, if that makes sense.
That's why
Okay.
it's bonded.
Bonded, yeah. So when it's bonded, then we need to use a mechanical removal system, which would be like which is the clay bar, okay? Because the clay is like, it's almost,
And a wash pad is not enough for bonding.
wash pad is not enough for bonding contamination. And the clay bar almost feels like, you know, if you're old like me, feels like silly putty. And that sticky silly putty essentially grabs on to the bonding contamination and pulls it into the sticky synthetic clay residue, taking it off of the surface of the car, like so. And actually, I'm gonna just spray a little bit more. I'm using iron remover as my clay lubrication instead of detail spray. And listen, clay lubrication can come in all different kinds of forms. Clay lubrication mainly just means a product that helps your clay glide on the surface while it picks up bonded contamination, if that makes any sense whatsoever.
I think Plus Vaporwave says, okay, but aren't you rubbing it in by not rinsing before you lay it on?
Rubbing what in?
The iron contamination. I think they're asking, like, you spray it on the iron remover, but then you didn't rinse before clay bar.
Yeah. The reason why I didn't rinse before was because a lot of the iron contamination that was turning purple as I initially sprayed it was just surface level iron contamination. So if I can use an iron remover to start breaking that down, it makes using the clay bar easier to use. But what I might show you here in just a second, I wonder if there's like a way to show this. Okay.
What is it that you're trying to show?
I think that's pretty good. I want to show like the concept of like, when I say like shrapnel and like the iron contamination's embedded into the surface, like what I mean by that. So I like to rinse off my clay. Okay. Set this aside and I'm gonna rinse this off. Okay, so now when I look at this, it is like significantly better. There's just like a little bit right here. But like if you look at the rest of it, it is like, I mean, much, much better. Okay. So let me just, I'm gonna dry this off for a second. So like Chris and I will just take you through really fast. I'll show you some of the areas that it still has it on there, but what I want you to see compared to the other side. So is it better if I like shield it with my shadow?
No.
Okay, it's worse. So a couple areas I see. There's two specks right here.
Yep.
There's some specks like in here. There's some specks kind of like in, it's just kind of like very random now. Now, Chris, run your fingers over that and tell me if it's smooth or if it's like still bumpy.
This one's smooth, this one's bumpy.
How about like some of this up here, like that right there? Like right here.
Just trying to make sure I have it on camera.
Smooth,
Yeah.
right?
all smooth.
So smooth. Okay, let me just, in our pallet graveyard over here, let me just explain to you essentially what I'm doing, okay? This guy right here. See if I can figure this out. So,
That's how we work in a warehouse.
okay, so let's say that this, let me just rip some of this off. Okay, so paint overspray is like, let's pretend that this is like a mist of paint overspray, and this palette right here is your paint, okay? Paint overspray sits on top like this. Let me switch sides so I'm not like in the... Paint overspray sits on top like this. Paint overspray, road tar, tree sap sits on top of the paint. On the surface, it sits on top, okay? The clay bar, when it comes by, it goes boom, it takes it off. So now it's just like your paint like that, okay? Now, some iron contamination, because it's like, will sit on the surface like this, okay? So your clay bar takes that away, right? But some of the iron contamination goes like this. It goes into your paint like that, right? And so what happens is when I take the clay, let's see if I can do this. When I take the clay, okay, this is embedded inside here, and this is the part that's sticking out, protruding from the like shrapnel that's in there. When you take the clay, boom, you hit this and it takes this top layer of the iron off, okay? But you still have this iron contamination that's down embedded inside of your paint. So now what we do, so we're right here at this point on that truck, okay? Now what we do is
and that's why we can still see the orange spot, but it's smooth to the touch.
Exactly.
We've knocked off the part that's sticking out.
Yep. Yeah, that's why you can still see orange specks in the paint, but it's smooth. Because if you run your hand over, it feels like it's just paint, but it's because you can see this part that got sheared off from the clay bar. This iron is still sitting in there. So now what we do is we dried it off again. I hope you guys really like my diagram that I spent a lot of time on.
It's live, we're improvising.
Yeah. So now what we do is on this same portion, so I did the iron remover, I did the clay bar using iron remover as the clay lubrication. Now I just take this and I do the same thing. I just spray it onto the surface now. And the thing about it now is that the clay bar is irrelevant because I've already removed the bonding contamination and the protruding iron contamination that was sticking out of the paint. But now what I'm doing is I'm attacking the iron contamination that is down into the paint. So,
Joseph Hallow says, would the clay mitt be enough for this, or do you need to use a stronger one?
Would the clay mitt be enough for this? The clay mitt absolutely would be enough for this, depending on how severely, like you'll be able to see, like you can see on this truck how much iron contamination is on here. I know for a fact, based on me touching this car, how bad this needs to be clayed. Like it desperately, I bet you it's never been clayed in its entire existence. And because of that reason, I'm using the Visco clay because it's a little bit more aggressive than the clay mitt. So there's one showing up here, or I mean in a few spots here, there's some right here. See, I mean I clayed over this.
Yep.
And there's still some purple specks happening, even like down here. I mean, compared to what you guys saw previously, when I first sprayed iron remover on, it is significantly less,
oh, yeah.
right? So that tells me that probably 90%, let's call it 98% of the iron contamination that was on this truck was sitting on the surface, not embedded into the paint, right? But I want to get all the orange specks off. So I'm just going to give it a couple more sprays. But like at this point, it's like, it's pointless for me to do the clay bar because I've already gone over the top layer, the top surface of the paint.
Wilson says, excuse me, after using the iron remover with your clay bar, should you rinse the clay after?
I went like this and I rinsed it off. But realistically, if you don't rinse it off, like what you need to do is you need to stretch it and fold it onto itself. So like the contamination that you pulled off onto the clay bar, you essentially incorporate it into the clay bar, and then you like keep going after. But
And then how do you tell when a clay bar has been used too much and you need to throw it out?
How do you know when a clay bar is used too much and you need to throw it out? On a day like today, it's cold, so this is like pretty hard actually. But if I went to stretch this out, if it broke right now, I need a new clay bar.
So if it's not stretchy, it's brittle.
Yep. And this is like, it's like bubble gum. Like you can stretch it really far. If this broke pretty early on, that means that there's too much contamination incorporated into this clay that I need to switch to a new clay bar.
Ken says, is there a method to tell which type of clay to use?
Is there a method to tell which type of clay to use? Yeah, it's more of like something that you guys would need to do. It's more of when you feel the car. So if it's your car and you're at home in your driveway and you feel the car and like the surface feels somewhat smooth, but you feel like a few bumps here and there, you don't need to be as aggressive. It means there's not very much bonded contamination on. Chris, feel this car and tell me, like, what, just off the top of your head, what it feels like.
Like the fourth.
Like it feels
I
like.
don't know how you want me to describe it.
Like it feels like minor sandpaper almost.
Yeah. It feels like.
Here's the other thing: if you're
like really fine grit sandpaper.
Yep.
Or like sand that got stuck on something.
Yep, sand that got stuck on something. The other thing is, you can take like a Ziploc baggie, like a sandwich size Ziploc baggie, put your hand in it and go over the surface, and you'll feel it so easy. Because when you do it with your fingers, naturally your fingers like absorb some of the bumps that you feel. But when you put your hand in a baggie, it doesn't, and it over exaggerates the feeling of the bonding contamination on your car.
But also be careful because the plastic does scratch.
Plastic does scratch a little bit, you know, but that's kind of why I say like feel it with your hand first. If it has a soundtrack like this, you need to do a little bit more work on the.
It should be smooth and you shouldn't hear your hand gliding over it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
right before you did that, Wendy said soundtrack test.
yeah, I love that. That means people are paying attention. That's cool. Okay, so
People actually listen to us? Crazy.
Listen, my kids don't. At least you guys do. You know? So yeah, it's still kind of, there's still a few specks in here. There's one right there. There's some right here. And listen, I'm not perfect. I don't think anybody is. So like I could have missed some areas with the visco clay, which is fine. I'm just still working on this. But now I rinse this off. Like that. And we'll take this. Sorry, I was wearing my surfing wetsuit gloves and my hands are getting really hot. Oh, it's so close.
We're shooting a video in January and your hand's not cold. It's a miracle.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I mean, that's pretty good. That is very not orange specky. There's no more freckles on the white car.
Clean white.
It looks a lot better. It definitely needs to be polished because the paint's like oxidized, but
Yeah,
now feel that, Chris.
super smooth.
It's like dry. It's like the paint feels like dry.
Yeah.
But if I go like this, there's like no soundtrack, you know, because I've removed all the bonding contamination.
After close to your mic.
Before, after.
Definitely tell.
Do you guys want to see me, or do you want to just show the before and after? I do have like one other thing I want to show you before I move on, but I would like to do the process on this side really quick, but
What's the other thing you want to show?
something that's like really easy to add some protection to the car.
You can definitely tell right where the
I mean, I have to be honest, like when I look over by this F-150 badge, yeah, it's like there's so much contamination over here. When I look on that side, it actually looks like I can almost see like a reflection,
Yeah.
and it looks more clear to me. Like it looks more pure white, I guess I would say. Looks more flat.
You can tell it really needs to be polished though.
Yeah. Every car needs to be polished, pretty much.
Yeah.
You care if I go through this process one more time?
Not at all.
Okay, so same thing. I've already dried this side. So just take iron remover. We're gonna spray this on here.
Nick Wheel says, saw you at Auto Car Club last week.
Oh, that's right. Did Nick say hi? I want to make sure, because I talked to a lot of people there. Yeah, everyone I saw in Arizona, it was awesome. I saw so many people that said they love watching the lives. I'm just thankful that, I think for me, I want people to get value from this. You know, like I've learned so much from Adam, and he was a big proponent of you know, giving everyone the answers. And he actually made a comment when I was in Arizona, which I thought was really cool, is, you know, he essentially created these instructional DVDs to help people understand the detailing process. And then he said the crazy thing is then people started doing it like more than he cleans his cars, because he's so busy running a business. And he said my customers became the expert. So then they would email me and be like, hey, your iron remover, it doesn't quite have like enough lubrication in it. I can't use it with the clay. Like you should add like some kind of lubrication to it. And he's like, oh wow, that's a cool idea. You know, it's like he was listening to the customer and then providing, taking that and you know, improving his products to fit with what everybody wanted. And he said like if he could give any advice to anybody, that's like he's like, that's what I would give the advice, is really take care of your customer, listen to them, you know, give them all the tools, everything from the process to the actual products, but they're going to become the expert, and they're actually going to almost become your R&D source, because they're just so good at what they do.
Nick said, no, I didn't say hi to you. Sorry, you looked busy.
Oh, that's all right. Well, Nick, next time, Nick. Sorry I didn't get to say what's up. You should have just pushed people out of the way. Say, listen, I'm special treatment VIP. I watch live every week, so excuse me.
Just crowd surf right to the front.
And then I would have like reached in the car and pulled out a red carpet and been like, Nick's here. So yeah, that's
The red carpet you just keep in your car.
yeah. I just like carry it with me. It's in my backpack.
It's like the Parks and Rec joke about him having red carpet in his shoes, so he's always on a red carpet.
Jeez. I don't ever want to be on a red carpet.
Not your color.
Not my thing, man. What's up, Scott?
How are you?
Good. You want to check this out?
What you doing?
Iron remover?
It's good stuff, man. I love that stuff.
We're doing a live video.
Yeah, we're live right now, but look at that.
Oh, yeah. I use it on my engines when I tear them apart.
Oh, really?
I spray it on it
Oh,
and then power wash them. They look like brand new.
that's cool.
I save about $40 each engine. When I kick in,
Yep.
I dip them. I just clean them myself. And
That's pretty cool, man.
stuff looks great.
I love that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm doing body work or automotive, brakes or whatever, I spray that stuff on it.
Yep.
Cleans it all up.
Yeah. Good to see you, man. That guy's a special human being right there. He's like our transport guy. So like when we have an overflow warehouse that has like a ton of Adams Polishes stuff in, like he's every day back and forth bringing us the product that we need to send to you guys. And then, you know, he'll even drive like from here to Arizona to like give them shipments and stuff we can't ship. And by like most positive guy you've ever met. Like that guy never has a bad day, and I love that. Okay, so yeah, it's really. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Just need to wet this a little bit more, so my clay can do the work. And I put the imprint. I use this. That's why it's called the Geo Impression Tool. Is like, while we were talking about rolling out the red carpet for Nick, I was pushing this onto here. So I have this, I have this like pattern. Yeah, ridge pattern. That's a good way to put it, Chris. Like that. And then I flip it over, hold it on here. And now it's just the Visco clay. It's like a little bit more effective. By the way, if you've bought Visco clay before and you still have this geoimpression tool, like fine grade clay or medium grade clay, use the geoimpression thing and it makes it more effective. And I do recommend wearing gloves for this process. The reason why is it will make your hands smell terrible. Because the thioglycolate has a sulfur molecule in it, which, as Chris would describe, is stank. And, geez, man, has a stank molecule.
That's
and
one of the few chemicals we can't make smell good because the active ingredient is terrible.
I will say though, our products that have the thioglycolate in it by far the best smelling on the market.
Of the ones that have.
Of the ones that have that thioglycolate, and like not even a question.
And we've improved it over the years. Like when
Yeah.
I first got hired, it smelled much worse.
Oh, dude. Imagine this. We actually, they spilled a whole tote of wheel cleaner in the warehouse once, and it was like,
I'd leave. I'd go home.
you guys ever watch the movie Anchorman? And he sprays on that Black Panther, like, cologne, and everyone starts gagging. They're like, smells like burnt hair. That's essentially like the reaction. The whole warehouse is like, oh.
Chester says, can or should we use the clay or wheels with the... Sorry, I'm not understanding this. Oh, type on. Can or should we use the clay on wheels with the wheel and tire cleaner heat, or should we use the iron remover? So, iron remover on wheels, yes or no?
Iron remover on wheels. I mean, iron remover as like this product itself is better for paint, because if you notice, it's like I can't remember. You're gonna have to correct me, Chris. Is it viscous or non-viscous?
Less viscous.
It's less viscous, meaning it's like more watery. The actual wheel cleaner, which is like the kind of the teal colored product of the wheel cleaners that we sell.
Not wheel and tire cleaner. Just
Not wheel and tire cleaner, the regular wheel cleaner, standard wheel cleaner. That essentially is like the same formula as this. It's just the wheel,
same active ingredient.
same active ingredient, but the wheel cleaner is more of like a gel formula. And that's for a very specific reason. The wheel cleaner, we want to come out of the sprayer and stick to the surface and dwell. We don't want it to run off super fast. Whereas the iron remover, we want the iron remover to come out and spray a thin spray, because like if I sprayed wheel cleaner right now, it comes out and it only covers like this much of an area, like right here, because it's like a thicker product, so it doesn't atomize. But like when I spray this and I pull the trigger hard, it covers like this much of an area, right? Whereas wheels, I wanted to cover a specific area, stick to it, dwell, and work, because your wheels have the most iron contamination on them out of any other place in the car, because your metallic brake dust just comes off of it so much. And so what I would recommend, if you're gonna like deep clean your wheels, I would pull them off the car. Like if you have the ability to pull all 4 wheels off the car at once, it makes it a lot easier. But if you only have the ability to pull either 2 or just 1 off of the car, pull 1 off the car, deep clean them with wheel cleaner, and I would use a clay bar after you clean them with the wheel cleaner. I would say in that case, you don't need to do it at the same time like I'm doing right now with the iron remover and the Visco clay. But yeah, I would clay the wheels, and then if you have like the mini polisher, like the 12mm mini polisher, whether it's the Pro or the first gen, then use that to polish your wheels. Oh, if they're not matte finished. Like if they're matte finished, don't even try to polish them. It's not worth it. You can't do anything. But if they're a gloss material, like either, you know, clear coated or painted, then you polish your wheels and then ceramic coat them.
Wendy says.
I mean, what the heck? That is so much better.
Wendy says Eco APC versus citrus degreaser for a filthy engine.
Eco APC or citrus degreaser? I actually, you know what, Wendy? I actually prefer the citrus degreaser on the spray setting, not the foaming sprayer setting. I don't know why, but the citrus degreaser like almost leaves the plastics and stuff like more rich black, like more rich color and black. I don't know why. I didn't develop the chemistry, but
You're not a chemist? Really?
no, I'm not, Chris. I'm like a weird art student. But yeah, citrus degreaser, I would probably recommend that. But like realistically, I'd say tire and rubber cleaner is also one of the better engine bay cleaners. How much different does that look?
Than before?
Yeah, than before.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot
Insanely
different.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna do like I went through this process on that side, but right, we washed it. You already went through that. I sprayed the iron mover on, I let it work for a minute, then I sprayed it again to wet it, and then I used the Visco clay, and now I'm spraying the surface again, and I don't need to spray it on like too heavy. I just want this to
Get any last stuff that's embedded into it.
exactly.
Ken Wilson says, I'm about ready for another Colorado road trip before too long. A lot of fun visiting the Adams Polishes
Dude.
staff.
Ken, come back out, please. I'll take you to some more breweries.
Bring another car for us to do a live on.
No, just do the Tacoma again. We can do whatever he wants.
I meant bring a car again.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what.
Well, he's not gonna walk, Chris. Well, if he walks, we could clean his shoes.
I meant he could fly.
If he flies, we could clean his plane.
Smart ass.
It's interesting. This side like isn't. The other side had more spec, like more purple reaction after the second round of iron remover. This side,
I think you might have clayed this side longer because you were talking.
I did, but there's still like some. There's some here. It's more the reason why I did it again. A lot of it, if you can look inside the actual zero of the F150, there's a ton of it. If you got to get a little bit lower, you can really see it. And really, like, another thing that's great with iron remover is areas where you can't clay, like in this crease where the Ford badge is, it's getting inside of there as well. So there's I still, even if you feel like you got everything on the first go around with iron mover and the clay, I just recommend doing it again because you're just, it's like making sure that you do it right, you know. You can see I barely got some of the iron mover over here, and it's like I didn't clay this part.
Yeah.
So that, again, I think for me, I hope this is helpful for you guys because I think the iron removing process just, it's like a spectacle. Your car is filthy, you rinse the dirt and grime off, you wash it really quick, then you spray this on here, and it's like, whoa, my car turned purple, cool. And then you rinse it off and you keep going. And it's like, the ultimate goal of this is to remove the orange specks. It's not for your car to turn purple. And so part of the element of that is using a mechanical removal tool like a clay bar to get the surface level stuff off, and then iron remover after, again, to start melting away the embedded iron contamination that's in there. To me, it's not a either or of a clay or iron remover or iron decon. It's both. And the fact that you can use iron remover as like the lubrication for your clay, even better because you can combine 2 steps into one thing.
Rock says, I just recently picked up a 2024 F-150 in the Avalanche color, and mine has rail dust all over the truck. I plan on getting it ceramic coated, and they said to prep it all and get rid of all of that.
Dang, they're making you do all the work? Jeez.
Do you still think, hopefully he's getting a cheaper price for that.
No kidding.
He says, do you still think I should use that iron remover myself beforehand?
I definitely do. I don't know if you guys could hear the question. I'm sure you could, but essentially, what was his name? Brock. He said he just got an F-150 in the Avalanche color, which is like, it's not white, but it's almost like gray, like flat grayish white. I'm pretty sure. And he's saying like this detail shop wants him to prep everything and then bring it to get it ceramic coated. And he's like, should I do the iron remover process? And I said yes, because you know, even if you can't see a lot of this contamination, like if anything, you want them to ceramic coat onto the clear coat and not anything else. So like the more work you can do by prepping it like that, the better your ceramic coating is going to perform and the longer it's going to last. So, so yeah, I would recommend it. And I would say like, you know, this process I showed you guys, there's actually like a dedicated video for this on our YouTube channel. Let me see if I can find the actual title of it. I have my phone right here.
While you're looking, can I ask you another question?
Yeah, ask me another question while I look for this.
Stylen says, would the black molding react okay with the iron remover? They fade when you use the wrong product. So he's asking if this black plastic is okay to have the iron remover on it.
Yeah, I think for me, yes. If anything, you can like tape it off. But every time I've done it, it's been okay. I think it's more like when your plastic is really old, like super oxidized. The oxidation acts like a sponge almost and will like take the product in. In that case, like I would clean it after like thoroughly with tire and rubber cleaner and like a scrubbing towel, like our Edgeless utility towel. Or even like another good towel to use for that is the Great White drying towel. It's like a bigger version. And clean it thoroughly. And then if it is faded, like it's gray instead of black, use our black trim restore and go through that process and like restore the black trim, and then ceramic. You want to ceramic coat over everything realistically, but like especially your plastic, because it helps prevent it from fading and oxidizing. So
is the iron remover safe to use with the clay mitt?
Iron remover, yes, safe to use with the clay mitt. Yeah, definitely. And I would say like if it doesn't feel as bumpy, like when you do like to feel it after you've washed it, if it feels like mildly bumpy, then like a clay mitt's a better option because it's not as aggressive as the visco clay. But like this truck, almost guarantee its entire existence has never been clayed. So that's why I was using visco clay, because it does a better job of pulling more contamination off in like one pass. You know, like the clay mitt with this car, I'd have to have gone over it multiple times to really like do what I was intending. So
you're looking for that YouTube video?
Yeah, I'm pretty close. It's called, where is it? How to clay your car. Nope, that's not it. How to remove iron contamination. How to remove iron contamination from your paint. It looks like this one right here. It's like a car that's all purple with an iron remover in it, some arrows, and unfortunately me. But then when you click it, you go to an ad. Sorry, of course. But you'll see black or orange specks in your paint, but I don't even think people know that that's on there. So wild. You do not. Okay, so that's the video. And actually, the second time I sprayed this, you can see a lot more of it showed up.
Call of Duty's fan says, hello, I recently bought the gallon version of iron remover, and I don't know the dilution ratio. Do I use it full strength or diluted?
Full strength. It's a RTU product ready to use. So yeah, use it full strength. Just put it into a bottle and start using it. Oh, this is so great. I am so happy, Chris. That is so much better. I can't even believe it. The one thing I would say is, like, if there's anything I was going to do again, like this side has no badges on it. This has a F-150 badge here. So what I would do is I'd probably dry this one more time, and I would only spray like around the badge, because there's still some specks inside here and right on this line right here. So that's what I would recommend. Your badges especially, they accumulate a lot of that contamination like really easily. It gives it, yeah, exactly. It gives it a nook and or a cranny to go to. Okay. So what I wanted to show before we sign off is just a way to add some easy protection. So you can see, I mean, it's actually like the paint's coming back, right? There's not a bunch of bonding contamination on here for the water to stick to, but Rinse Aid is like a super, super easy way to add some protection. And actually the way you use this is take the top of the foam cannon off of our car shampoo, and then I'm gonna rinse it off. Rinse the straw off like that, and then I'm gonna connect this really quick. Oh, there we go. Whoops. And then I'm just gonna run some water through this to get the foam out of it. And if anything, I could even like set it in here a little bit, the straw. Okay, and then take my Rinse Aid, throw this on here. Like that. And then I'm gonna turn my dial again all the way counterclockwise, so when I pull the trigger, it's just water. Like that. And then I'll start dialing this up, and when I start to see it turn milky, right there, you can see it's milky now. That's when I know I'm pulling Rinse Aid on here. So now I just turn.
It's not gonna foam, it's just milky.
It's not gonna foam, it's milky. This is protection, not soap. So now what I do is I just spray this on here. Like that. I'm gonna let it sit for a minute. I'll just take this off and set it aside. And I actually need to, I usually let it sit for like maybe 15 seconds roughly.
I don't know why, but I think the beads while it's sitting looks really cool.
Yeah. Put the pressure washer tip back on. Like that. Point it away from the car so it doesn't hit it. And I don't know, how many seconds, Chris? You think it's been 15?
Yeah.
Rinse it off. So there you go. Protected. And then you dry it off and you're done.
Can you use Rinse Aid on coated, non-coated?
You know what? Actually, you can use it on both. So like this car has never been protected, I imagine. So I use it on a non-protected vehicle. If this car was ceramic coated, the Rinse Aid is an amazing maintenance product and a very easy delivery method. So yeah, I mean, if you look up Adams Polish's Rinse Aid on our YouTube channel, I do it on both types of cars. One that's not been protected and the other one that has been has a ceramic coating on it. And you can really see the benefit that it provides a ceramic coated vehicle. Want to see it in action? I mean, it took me 5 seconds to get the bottle set up. It took me 5 seconds to spray it on. It took me 15 seconds to wait, and then it took me 5 seconds to rinse it off. And it's like,
And now
you're talking, here's the thing too. Like if you're
Oh,
not
yeah.
if you're not a ceramic coating person, you're like, I'm never gonna put ceramic coating on my car. I appreciate it. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but what you could do is every third or fourth time that you wash your car, you could do this rinse aid process, and your car is going to be protected like this for essentially forever if you do it consistently every third or fourth wash. So, so yeah, and I think like, you know, personally for me, like I like the concept that you can just throw it onto the top of your foam cannon and like dilute it by the dial on top. It just seems so easy to me. You can also dilute it into a foam cannon. And in the video, the product page video or the video on YouTube, if you search Adams Polishes Rinse Aid, I go through that. I talk about all how you dilute it. The other way you can do it is dilute it into an empty bottle and spray it on there. So there's like, you know, a couple different ways to put it on there. But now when I take this and the drying towel and I go over it, that's what it's supposed to feel like. Easier to dry, water beads up, it's gonna be easier to clean next time.
How long does the rinse aid protection last?
It lasts a couple months. You know, it's more of like a sealant type of product.
Do you do the rinse aid before or after the wash for people that weren't here in the beginning?
Rinse aid is like, it's essentially the last thing you do before you rinse the car. So like, if you weren't doing this iron remover process, you just washed your car. You just, you know, you got your buckets out and you rinse the car off and then you foamed it down, then you washed it, then you rinse it off, then you put the rinse aid on, rinse off the rinse aid. A lot of rinse words. Rinse off the rinse aid and then it like is protected essentially. And I do recommend, like, if you don't have a deionizer, we do, so it makes it a little bit easier, but if you don't have a deionizer, like, don't rinse the whole car off and then try to put rinse aid on. And especially like if it's a hot day. If rinse aid ends up drying on your car, meaning like the solution goes on your car, it dries completely, it's harder to get it off. So what I like to do is, like, when I do a rinse aid, is this yours? Okay, we'll move here in a second.
Okay.
I cleaned the back of your, okay. She wants me to do the whole thing. But if you do it like in sections, you know, like rinse the back off, and I recommend starting like in the shaded area first. You know, and this is like, when I say rinse it off, I'm saying like, you know, the soap is still on the car. And if you guys remember, like when the soap is dry on the car, it's actually more safe to have the soap dry on the car because it eliminates water spots than it is to have hard water dry on the car. So yeah, it's kind of a little bit more interesting process, an interesting way to add protection to your car, but like an extremely easy way to do it. So
Chester says, will distilled water work? Does it work as a spot-free rinse?
distilled water, I imagine so.
It should, yeah, because it's also just straight up H2O.
Yeah. Does Chester have like a distillery for water in his garage? That would be interesting.
He's got a huge still
It's just,
in his garage.
yeah, it's like there's like steam coming out of his.
People are like, what are you brewing in here? And he
Yeah.
says, water to wash my car.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big that's pretty cool. I like that. All right, well,
I feel like he's probably talking about like putting it in a spray bottle.
Yeah.
Spot. Like,
no, I 100% know that. I just like this, the thought of it in my head.
Chester says I cannot answer that.
It's like he's got a boiler in his house. It's like, I love that idea.
This is how we find out that Chester is a moonshiner.
Yeah, I know. He lives in Kentucky. He makes Chester and Company whiskey, bourbon whiskey. Well,
Doesn't share with us.
I know. Well, that's okay. He can't. He's a moonshiner. He's not going to take it across state line, you know. Well, anyways, there you go. That's like a really clean tailgate, but not anything else. That's it. That's all we did. That's great. But anyways, yeah, I think this iron removing process is, I I don't know. I guess I didn't even really understand it until I started like thinking more, you know, I guess like using more common sense of like why you do an iron remover and why you do a clay and why you should do both. And I mean, probably 2 years ago, I used to clay the car during the washing, and then I would try to do the iron remover when the car was still wet, and I wasn't getting the results that I wanted. So I started tweaking my process. And this process I did is just, it feels very like tried and true. Like I always get the results how I want them, which is like, I mean, I bet if you went over there again, Chris, it would be very hard for you to find any specs on there. And again, I'm sure I didn't get all of them, you know, but in regards to when you come and look at it, oh, she can leave. When it comes to like the grand scheme of things, it's like very, very difficult to see anything else, you know? So, so yeah, I don't know. I hope if anything, I hope you guys learned something, you know? I'm always trying, I think for me, I think about the detailing process as a whole. And, you know, there's certain things you need to do at certain times. And this isn't something I do every time. This is something I do when I need to clay my car and things like that. So, you know, this is something that's helped me. I know that you guys it will help you guys, you know? So, again, if you want to learn more about like this process as a whole, you can go to the video, which I showed you on our YouTube channel, or you could refer back to this video that we just did. So,
Because the lives are always available after we're done.
yeah, lives get posted to our YouTube. Actually, if you go to if you type in youtube.com/Adams Polishes, it will take you to our homepage, and on the top there's tabs. I think one says home, the next one says videos, the next one says reels maybe, or playlists, and then the one after that says live. And if you click that, it has all the live videos we've done at Adams Polishes on YouTube since we started. And I think we started, yeah, I think we're going on year 5 of doing the live video. And actually I thought about it.
But some of them are on Facebook.
Some of them are on Facebook too, but I think the ones on YouTube are better.
Yeah.
But yeah, we started doing this in 2020. I started doing it with Adam. It was just like a random thing. Matt Butcher, who's now the president of Car Care here at Adams Polishes, he was the one who's like, you should try going live. It's like a video you could create without needing to edit it. And I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. And it sort of transformed into this, you know, there's no smoke and mirrors here. Like what you see is what you get. I couldn't force that to do that. Like that process is something that I've developed over a couple years of experience. And so what I want to be able to do is it's kind of like a hangout session, and it's like you guys are standing here in the parking lot with me. You know, I met a lot of people in Arizona that were at an in-person detail clinic, and they all were like, we love the live videos. And I'm like, I want it to feel like this in-person detail clinic setting, but like you just get to see it through your screen. So I appreciate when you guys ask questions, because, you know, if Chester has a question that he thinks is quote unquote not a good question, it actually is something that everybody else has a question about. They just didn't realize that they needed to ask it. So
for every one question, there's 10 people who are afraid to ask.
Yes, exactly. So more questions is better. I really appreciate that part of it. It's only helping all of us navigate this. And, you know, like I said, I do this a lot. So like I have my own routine and my own processes, but like a lot of you guys do it a lot. So if you have suggestions for me to be better, I'm totally open for it. So this is not a, you know, oh, you got to do it my way. I just want you guys to get results. And a lot of the stuff I do is just from doing it over and over and over again. So, so yeah, I hope today was helpful. Upon request, next week we're doing anti-fog. We'll do a couple. I think what I want to do is address interior glass. Anti-fog is a piece of that, but there's other things that you can do as well. So we'll do anti-fog mixed with some like interior glass care. And then the week after that, we're gonna do the ceramic coating whiteboard session. So I'll be putting really bad, you know, pictures up on the whiteboard with a marker. And, you know, I kind of want to just like walk through how I think about ceramic coatings and like how you treat them and how you maintain them. Not necessarily like how you do it, but like why, and sort of like maybe the science around it a little bit, I guess would be like a good way to put it. So I don't know, I hope that's kind of interesting. You're not going to see a lot of like me doing things, but more of like describing stuff. And then like I want to answer as many questions as you have when it comes to ceramic coatings as a whole, you know. So there you go. Thank you guys for watching. And you know, again, I appreciate you guys. You know, I really enjoy doing this, and especially like if I'm providing value, it makes it more satisfying for me in the long run. So, you know, thank you guys for watching this week. I'll see you next week when we do anti-fog and interior glass, and I hope to see you guys there. See you next